Reddit Ask Me Anything. I was a paid gestational surrogate for a couple I didn't know. Ask me anything. 1 year ago, an embryo belonging to a couple my surrogacy agency matched me with was implanted into my uterine lining. And 3 months ago, I gave birth to a baby that is not related to me genetically. It was an amazing experience, and it was surprisingly well paying. Obviously, when you ran into people on the street, they automatically assumed it was your baby in there. How did you handle that situation? I always back to Phoebe from Friends. Oh, they're not mine. They're my brother's. Oh yes. There's something about a pregnant woman that seems to encourage strangers to ask questions and or make personal comments. I usually just smiled and said thank you for the congratulations, or answered whatever question, without bothering to correct the assumption that it was my baby because it wasn't worth going into the details with every grocery store cashier who wants to ask me if it's my first. Is it a boy or girl? etc etc. My boyfriend would always get a kick out of being congratulated when people would assume he's the father. How was your BF's mindset towards the whole procedure? How did the topic even come up? He was amazingly supportive, and as someone who had been through the surrogacy process on the parent side, he understood a lot of what I was going through and was a great source of information and guidance. I had started the application process before I met him. It was clear after our first date that we were going to be serious, so I disclosed it to him to let him decide whether he wanted to continue to date a woman who was going to be pregnant with someone else's baby. He stuck around. What did this do to your personal love life? What about life goals in general? Did this get in the way? Surprisingly, it was an overall positive for my personal love life. I had just started dating my current boyfriend about a month before the embryo transfer. Once it was clear we were going to be dating seriously, I told him all about my plan to be a surrogate, and he surprised me by telling me that his daughter had been carried and delivered by a surrogate as well. It was an incredible coincidence that we really bonded over. It didn't get in the way of life goals. The opposite. Actually, I used the payments to put my daughter in a Montessori preschool, pay off my student loans, and a trip to Disney World. Your daughter is quite young, but did she ask about the pregnancy or the baby? How did you explain it to her? She never asked. On 2 occasions I did sit down and explain things in a way I thought she might understand. I'm making a baby to give to someone who wants to be a mommy, but I don't know if she got it. How much did you get paid? There were some other things like travel and boarding reimbursement, but the total cash compensation came to around $50,000. I cannot imagine how that's worth it for that long of a process and recovery. We knew a couple that did it. They had 4 kids of their own. For whatever reason, pregnancy was quite easy for her. Her body seemed to bounce back to normal very quickly. She made about that she would have if she worked full time, which she did not. So she could stay home with her own kids and still earn a full-time wage. She did it at least 3 times that I remember and even had twins for a couple once. That paid considerably more. The parents always lived out of state and would often invite her to visit with them during her pregnancy, treating her to spa days, etc. Basically pampering her. She enjoyed it. Her husband was supportive. It worked well for them. This exactly. The way a woman's body reacts to pregnancy is highly variable. For some it's relatively easy. I don't really understand how someone can keep their use of a surrogate private. Did the parents say they adopted? Did the mother pretend to be pregnant for 9 months so it would seem like she's the one who gave birth? It's easy to pull off if you don't live near family and keep your mouth shut on social media. I've seen birth announcements after having no clue that anyone was pregnant before. Yep, I haven't been answering any questions about how they kept it private, but it's a lot easier than most think. I live 2 miles away from family and they didn't realize that I was pregnant with my daughter until we called to tell them after she was born. They saw me several times up until about 30 weeks. Baggy clothes work wonders and people are not observant sometimes. It's pretty much just a keeping your mouth shut thing. This is a harsh question, but if for some reason the pregnancy resulted in a miscarriage, was there a clause that you'd still get some sort of compensation for the time you did spend carrying? That's a great question. The agency sent me my compensation once a month. Had I miscarried, I would have been allowed to keep the monthly payments I'd received up to that point, but there wouldn't be additional payments. I know I'm late to the party here, but curious about something. If you had changed your mind, were you legally allowed to get an abortion? Like, I assume if it's a contract, part of that is that you have to carry the baby to term. But presumably there are at least some circumstances where you would be allowed to back out, the most obvious one being unexpected health complications. In the same vein, what if the other parents wanted to back out? Like at some point they decide they want an abortion, or they decide that they think you're unfit to carry again, maybe for health reasons. Who knows? Do you have any say in what happens? Do they? What are the consequences for breaking the limitations? I don't think a contract proscribing any personal medical procedure would be enforceable in the US or EU. So if she wanted to get an abortion within the legal time frame, there shouldn't be anyone to stop her. The surrogacy agency wouldn't know anyway, since medical records are private. She could say she miscarried, since the adoption doesn't legally take place until after the birth. I'm assuming the parents could back out at any time. They'd just be out $50,000 plus. I would hope there would be some protection against the new parents backing out. $50,000 would not cover the cost of having an unplanned child to take care of. This is the more interesting edge case. That's so great that you did this for them. About the payments, was it even payments? $50,000 9 or so months? Or were they smaller during the pregnancy and a larger payment at the end when the baby was born? A few payments in the beginning for each stage of the process, like $X for getting medically cleared, $Y for doing the embryo transfer, and then it was a regular monthly payment for 9 months. Do you have to pay the same tax rate on this as you would on a salary? I'm not from USA, so I'm not familiar with tax laws. The compensation is taxed as if it was independent contractor earnings, so come next tax season I'm sure I will owe quite a bit. That's interesting. I had a friend who did it twice. They said they didn't pay taxes cause they considered it to be pain and suffering and likened it to workers' compensation. They even went as far as to show me a ton of surrogacy blogs where surrogates were all talking about not reporting it for taxes. Lawyer here. That's a very risky position to take tax-wise. The IRS likely would not agree. Sets you up for a bad audit if the IRS sees it. The bank has to report deposits over $10,000 and the IRS sometimes investigated them. Besides the regular pregnancy limitations, what new limitations or restrictions changed your life by being a surrogate? Did you have to change your diet or lifestyle at all to fit the needs wants for their family baby? Oh, that's a great question. Once I was at about 30 weeks, my contract required me to stay within my state and within 50 miles of the hospital where I planned to deliver. That was especially restrictive because my boyfriend and I were long distance at the time, so it prevented me from driving to see him during the last 2 months of the pregnancy. He had to come visit me in order for us to see each other. About a month ago, I moved to his state, and we live together now, but this move would have happened much sooner if not for the surrogacy. The state where he lives doesn't have surrogacy-friendly laws, so my contract wouldn't have allowed me to live here. You allowed to deliver it any way you like? Yes, I got to call the shots for the birth plan. Was it hard to give up this baby that had been a part of you for 9 months? Will you breastfeed at all? Are you staying in touch with the couple at all? Is this a good thing for you? Will they raise the kid to know they were born via surrogate? Not hard at all. The couple I delivered for are wonderful people, and it makes me happy knowing that the baby I carried is going to get loving care from them. I didn't breastfeed. Many surrogates will elect to pump, freeze, and ship breast milk, but I don't like pumping, so I didn't do this. I did pump a little while at the hospital, but after that, the baby was fed formula. I stay in touch the mom through texting. I check in every now and then to see how she and the baby are doing. Their current plan is to not let the child or anyone else know they used a surrogate, but that is rare. Most are open about surrogacy use, and I wonder if they will change their mind and tell the child years down the line. I hope they do. Did she have a fake pregnancy belly, or how can they explain the new baby? Haha, no fake pregnancy belly, that I know of anyway. How did it feel compared to how you gave birth the first time? Much easier and faster the second time. And recovery was fantastic because I got to sleep at nights instead of constantly being woken up by a hungry newborn. How did this affect your day job? Did your day job offer maternity benefits? Were you allowed to take them? If your day was more physical, were you given lighter duties? I had to miss time occasionally at work for the prenatal appointments, but I have a remote job that gives me some flexibility in the hours I worked. I tried to schedule the appointments during my lunch break, and I could make up time by working a bit late as needed so that I wouldn't deplete my vacation time for surrogacy stuff. I am a translator, so my job involves sitting at a desk at a computer, very well suited to a tired pregnant woman with low energy. I didn't qualify for maternity benefits. Some surrogates do qualify at their companies, but the employee handbook at my company said you have to be a caregiver for the baby in order to get maternity leave. I could have taken unpaid time off through FMLA, but the sick time I'd accumulated was all I needed for recovery because I didn't have any complications from the delivery. Now that seems crazy. Part of the med for maternity leave is to recover, baby or not. Did you meet and connect with a couple during the surrogacy process? Did they join you for things like doctor appointments? Did you join them for things like gender reveals, baby showers, etc.? They don't live in my state, so there wasn't much face-to-face interaction. We had an initial meeting over a Skype video call, arranged by the surrogacy agency, to see if we felt like we were a good match. I met them in person during my medical workup at their fertility clinic, and again at the embryo transfer. After that, they came to my state for the 20-week ultrasound, and then I saw them at the hospital for the delivery. Some surrogates get to participate in the baby shower and etc. But that wasn't the case for us because of the distance and their decision to keep their use of a surrogate private. Wait.